Hi guys, this is Unit 4, video number 2. This is the one, if you look on your guide, this is going to be the Valence Electron review video. It's going to be a brief one. We are just going to kind of review and recap what we talked about back in Unit 2 with valence electrons, which we've kind of talked about all along. But we're going to kind of look and see how they relate to the periodic table. It's going to make our lives a whole lot easier than trying to have to go through and look them up every single time. Valence electrons, you should be asking yourself, what are they? Kind of reviewing in your mind. Think about it for a second. What's a valence electron? If you thought that a valence electron was the outermost, absolutely correct. Okay, it is the outermost electron. Those are the ones we're really concerned about. When we do our next topic on bonding, they're the ones that are bonding. They are farthest from the nucleus. They're the easiest ones to kind of change or gain or lose. So they're the only ones that we're really interested in. If you think back to your periodic table when we were doing configurations, right, this lower left spot below the atomic number, that gives you the general electron configuration. This year we did not go into it in super detail. We may come back to it later on in the year as a kind of a review at the end of the school year. We may not. But you got to know where they are and kind of what they mean. So remember, electron configurations are just telling us the most probable location of where electrons would be within an atom. So that's going to be kind of our guide, but what we're going to actually look at is if you look at all the group 1 elements. I'm going to zoom in. I know it's not the clearest picture, okay, but you guys have your own reference table that has this same picture in it, as well as your note page, so you can kind of check it out yourself. Notice all of the group 1s, how many valence electrons do they have? They all have 1 valence electron. Kind of like it's a pattern, right? Let's take a look at group 2. Notice every single element in group 2 has 2 valence electrons. It's really weird. If we jump over here to group 13, starting with boron, oh look, they all have 3 valence electrons as well. Even though these aren't written down here, it's following that same pattern, and that's what this whole unit is patterns and trends. We can see that, hey, it kind of goes right along with it. So the easy way to remember, instead of finding out, looking for that, you either have it in the lower left corner, but if you just make the connection, hey, look, group 1, they all have 1 valence electron. So I want you guys to go through and actually write that in on your reference table so that we see it over and over this year. Because again, when we come back to bonding in our next unit, it's going to be a huge deal, knowing the valence electrons and being able to do it very quickly. Group 2, they all have 2 valence electrons. Group 13, now it's not group 3, okay, but 13, if you get rid of this 1 right here, oh look, there's that 3. So they have 3 valence electrons. Group 14 has 4 valence electrons. 15, again, you can see the pattern. 5, 6, 7, and then now you may notice most of group 18 has 8 valence electrons, except for this guy. Think about it. How many electrons total does helium have? Well, it only has 2, so helium is the one exception. It has 2 valence electrons, but as we talk about the noble gases later on in another video, you'll see that helium is still part of the noble gases and why that is. So that's most of the table, but what we kind of left off here was the middle section. You remember what those are called? You probably just watched the video on that. Those are your transition metals. Well, the reason why, we'll get into why they're called transition metals later on, but if you take a look here, now if you're asked specifically for a specific element, go to the configuration that they give you, but if you look at, most of them have 2 valence electrons. There's a few that don't, a few that would have like 1, and if you're asked specifically about those elements, go with what the box says, but in general, we can just kind of, talk general here about the whole group. They pretty much have 2 valence electrons. Do I think you'd be asked about something like chromium specifically, how many valence electrons does that have, or silver? Probably not. But if you are, go find them as well. But for a general idea, they pretty much have 2 valence electrons. Now, we didn't get into why, because again, we didn't go into super detail this year with the electron configurations. there's this thing called orbital overlap, but we don't need to worry about it too much for our test. If you take AP, you'll talk more about it. If you take chemistry in college, they'll get into more in detail as well. So just a quick recap, what valence electrons are and kind of an easy way to look at it. They correspond really with what group they're in, or you can always look down there at the electron configuration that's given to you. Just remember, it's the last number in your code that's given to you.